This is part 2 of the sinc function plot, and we're going to show you how to build this from Bartek's wavy flag program. Last time we showed you how to translate his program into Flex, and I'm going to run that so you can see it. So we have Bartek's program running in Flex, and now we're going to work with this to create a plotter. So let's do that right now. It's actually fairly easy to do. One of the things I want to note, though, I started off with a whole base set of functions. You can get these from my download sections, so just pull the program up and work with it. But here's that typical Papervision.org and the COM folder and the Carina folder. You've seen all those before. And we're going to go ahead and go with this, and you have to have that in order for these imports to work. Just make sure when you create your Flex project, you also have these folders as well. And we've got everything we need here. We just need to come down here and start working with the some of the coordinates and get it into a plane. Right now you can see in the private function build plane is actually rotated, and we don't want it rotated quite like this. Let's change some of these parameters. All we're really going to need is a plane rotated in the x direction minus 60 degrees. So we just get rid of these two functions right here. Let's run the program and see what we get. So now we have a nice flat plane to put our plot on. So let's go ahead and go from there. So in this particular case, I'm going to plot sin r over r. So let's go back to the code and start making modifications to it. This particular code that we're working now is called wavy flag 2. And the heart of the code is right here in the render function. That's where it basically renders over and over again the number of frames per second. And right here we can see that the Perlinizer, which actually causes the animation, is no longer needed because we don't want this curve animated. And we have basically the pixel that are being pulled off, and we don't need that anymore either. And we're going to actually get rid of this as well. I'm going to go ahead and paste in the code that we do need, though. So I need to center my sinc function. It's a sin r over r. So I basically do a little bit with the differentiate here the px and py to center the function by half the size of the screen. So I center the function right in the middle. And then what I need to do next is I need to basically write out the sinc function. And that basically just is sin r divided by r. But basically the px times px plus py times py is the square root of that. Basically is that r parameter. So basically my r has to be defined by this math function, and then that's put into the sin function. It's pretty much all there is. There's a multiply here based upon a slider. So let's pull that slider to the stage. Go to design, just come over here and grab slider. And so we put on the horizontal slider. Let's go back to source. And we can see the name of that slider is going to be my H sliders. Grab this. Go back to design. Click on that. Go to the Flex Properties window and just paste that in. We're going to want that slider to basically feed information to our program on the change. Click here on live dragging and hit true, and that will basically, as you move this slider, will feed that information. We also want a maximum and min. We'll let that minimum value be -1 and that maximum value be 1. And we want to set this to 0.5 when it first starts off. So let's go back to that code. And you can see all the changes that we made to the Flex properties actually appear here in the code. Live dragging true, minimum 1, maximum +1. And we're going to set the value, which is right here, 2.5. And now we're ready to go. Let's run this code and see what we get. And let's drag it, and we're making some progress here. Look at that. It's a little bit low, so I want to bring it up in the screen. So let's go back to the code. And we're going to set our Y position to basically 250. Let's try that. And control again. A little bit high. Let's bring it down some. And we'll change that to 150. And we're good with that. And we'll set that equal as opposed to plus equal. And let's move to the next section. And what we want to do now is when we run the code, we see we click and we get one texture. We actually want multiple textures. So let's take care of that right now. So what Bartek does here in the code is he creates an array, and he pushes in textures into the array. And then when you click on the screen, for example, those textures are switched. You see there's a matte pointer, and you click, and basically you swap a texture each time you click on the screen. We want more than one texture to be switched out, so we're just basically going to paste a lot of those in. Now, if you're looking for textures, there's a number of places you can get them at. I mean, just myriads. I actually, for this particular project, used two sources. I used Second Life because I do a lot of tutorials there, and they have tons of textures in it. And I also use FilterForge, and that's www.filterforge.com. You can get some great filters there, so just keep that in mind if you're looking for filters or textures. And they're in there now, and let's go ahead and run the program and see what happens. And that's a nice, beautiful texture. I really like that. And you can see when I click on the screen, all the different textures are changing. I like this one a lot too, because it's not it's just a bunch of cubes that they aren't drawn in. There's just a texture, but it looks like I actually drew those cubes. So that's a cool technique, and we'll be using that as we move on in different tutorials. Well, we're moving along here really well, but one more thing I want to do is basically not have the screen change the textures, but actually create a button that changes the textures. So what I want to do is this. Let's get rid of the listener, the mouse listener, so we'll get rid of that. And pretty much whenever I clicked on the stage, that mouse listener was activated. And now let's have that function be called, the swap material be called by a button. So we're going to go right here to design mode. We're going to drag a button to stage. We'll double click on it and put swap textures. And we're going to go back to the source, and that's going to be highlighted because I was working with it. And we're just going to put a click function in there. And we want the function that's being called to be swap textures. And let's go back up and show you where that function is. There it is, it's swap material, actually. That's what it's called. So let's copy that. And you see, once again, I'm doing a lot of copy and pasting. I like to do that when I program in Flex or in any other language. So I make a lot of spelling errors, and this saves me a lot of time. I've lost my button, so I just go to Design, click on it. That takes me back to the source code where it's at. And let's paste this in. And let's run it and see what happens. And let's click the textures button, and the textures are changing. And the amplitude is also moving along with it. Pretty cool. Easy to do. Isn't it amazing? I mean, Papervision is just full of this cool stuff. One more thing. Okay, we're on our way to building our basically three-dimensional plotter. And we have one more thing we need to discuss, and that's building a parser. Basically, we want to be able to have an equation line here, so when you type an equation line in, that's plotted in our 3D plotting package. And I'm not going to write one because it's already been written, and that's been done by the MathDL people at mathdl.maa.org/math.dl. You go to that site, they have a number of 3D plotting packages. They get that parser class away. So next time you see me doing a tutorial on this, you're going to see that parser class in this, and we'll have a world-class plotting package. And I got to tell you, it looks really good. I mean, in comparison to a lot of things I've seen out there. And the cool thing about this is this runs in your browser. You can't beat that. Thanks a lot for listening. This is Mike Lively from Northern Kentucky University.